I came here to get away from everything. I had just had my emotions dragged through the mud, and I needed some time to recover and get myself going again. I thought this would be a good place to reflect, to let my emotions come back together, and get ready to face the world again. It turned out to do that and more. Almost at the same moment that I arrived, the snow began to come down. I put all the provisions I had into the kitchen and started the coffee pot. Then, I piled lots of wood into the bin so that I could have a fire to keep warm. I had a few books and planned to do an Abe Lincoln and read them by firelight. The snow kept coming down all night and all the next day. This was working out just as I planned. I would have several days at least to calm myself and regain my mental strength. It continued to snow for 2 days. I was snowed in, with drifts covering the doors and windows. I had no contact with the outside world, according to my plan. I was already halfway through the first book I had with me. I heard a funny little noise, like a kind of scraping. It appeared to be coming from the roof. I did not think I could see the roof, so I ignored it and continued reading and thinking about feeling better. The noise continued for a long time, so I decided that I would try to find out what it was. I climbed into the attic and looked around with my flashlight. After a bit, I discovered that there was a trapdoor that apparently opened onto the roof. I pushed on it, and it was heavy, though with snow. After some effort, I managed to open it and discovered that a bear cub had been sitting on it. He apparently had not seen humans before, so he did not show any fear but reached for me, cuddling up for warmth. I looked around and did not see Mama Bear, so I guessed that he was lost in the snowstorm. So, I brought him in and got ready to feed him. He looked hungry. Big mistake. He quickly ate up everything I had set aside for that day, and still looked hungry. So, I worked out that I could feed him a little more. After he ate everything I gave him, he went to sleep. I had no idea how long he would sleep, so I tried to figure out what to do next. I thought Mama Bear would not be long coming to find Junior. Meanwhile, he would eat me out of provisions. So, I came up with a plan. After the cub had slept enough, I would put him back on the roof and hope his mama would find him. I would even put some food up there with him to help her. It worked, not exactly the way I thought it would. Hearing some noise on the roof, I opened the trapdoor. There stood the biggest man I had ever seen, and the cub was hanging on to him for dear life. He smiled, which made me feel a lot better, and began to explain himself. Turns out he lived nearby, and had a place where he kept wildlife safe from harm by hunters, etc. The cub was part of a family and had gone for an adventure when the snow began coming down. I gave him some coffee, and the cub had some more of my grub. After a while, he said he should get back, because Mama Bear would soon be very upset if she did not see Junior. He thanked me for my efforts and promised to come back for a visit when he could. So, my solitude renewed, I settled down to read and maybe write some for the rest of my stay. It was lovely and quiet, and I soon fell asleep. I awoke with a start at the rookus going on outside. The snow that had covered the window was gone, and there were several animals out front, and they were all dancing, it seemed, to some music that was coming from I don't know where. After a bit, the big guy I had seen before came out from behind them, and he was holding a small boom box that was putting out the music. As he held it up, the animals kept dancing around. Turns out, he taught them to dance to the music in order to keep them occupied at his place, which was very remote and nothing much ever happened there. After a while, the music stopped and so did the dancing. The animals actually began to wander off. He explained that this was their outing for the day, and they would all go home. He would try to stop by in a day or so. I thought that I would at last be able to enjoy my solitude. The rest of my stay was very quiet, and I was able to get myself together to face my world. Not very quiet, but very satisfying, and it did the job. I returned to my world fortified and strengthened by all that I had seen. By the way, Junior was united with Mama Bear, and I assume they all lived happily ever after. The next time I need some solitude, I will probably go back to the cottage. I wonder whether the cub will recognize me when he is all grown up. Maybe he has had his fill of adventure, and stays at home when the snow starts to fall. Maybe he has a Junior of his own to keep track of, and Mama is now Grandmama. I wonder whether they all dance, still. I wonder whether Roger, the big guy's name, still keeps the preserve for them all. I will just have to go back and find out, I guess.